Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare
सोफे के
Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare
सोफे के
Hare
कवर्स की ना ओवरलॉकिंग
Ram
कर
Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare
तो उसका
Hare
ना
Krishna
बैग
Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna
तो
Krishna
आप
Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhueva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namah. Vaishnav Shri Namacharya Haridas Thakur ji ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Good morning, dear devotees. This is Shivani from Ashram, Virginia. Please forgive me for stopping your beautiful chanting. I welcome you all to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call for this mid-morning session of Sri Prabhupada Lilamrta. May I know who all joined this morning?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Danvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining, giving a beautiful association today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga and all the assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. Yashamati Mataji, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you Mataji for joining and giving a wonderful and beautiful association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanava Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Gary in Montana.
Hare Krishna, Gary Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining, giving a wonderful and beautiful association, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to all the assembled devotees. Shri joining from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shashi Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining, giving a wonderful and beautiful association, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Srila Prabhupada, this is Prabhupada from
Hare Krishna, Prithvilasni Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining, giving a wonderful and beautiful association, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shivani Mataji. This is Kamodaki Dasi from Baltimore. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj and all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Kamodaki Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you, Mataji, for joining and giving a wonderful, beautiful association. Hare Krishna.
Nice to meeting you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you, Mataji, after a long time. Welcome.
Yes.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Good morning, dear devotees. Once again, I would like to welcome you all for this mid-morning session and Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. I would like to start by sharing a quote by Srila Prabhupada ji. A man has served the family with heart and should throughout the whole life. And when he is old man, if he asks permission from his wife, my dear wife, now I have served so much, let me take sannyas now. The wife will never give permission. She will say, what have you done? The son is not yet settled up. This daughter is not yet married. How can you take sannyas? So you cannot do. So actually he is a servant of the wife, but he is thinking, I am the master of the family. This is called Maya. Bombay, February 24th, 1975. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we are very fortunate to have Her Grace Lalita Devi Dasi Mataji. She is a disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ji. Her Grace Lalita Devi Mataji will be enlightening us on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, chapter 65. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. Lalita Devi Mataji, we're very honored to have you on the call today.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dhamma Pranam. Thank you for giving your valuable time and beautiful association. We're very waiting eagerly to hear from you, Mataji. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Please take over the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, dear. Dear devotees, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please bless me that I can somehow present the glories of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, from this final chapter named A World Tour, from the additional pastimes of Lilamrta. I want to thank Vinita Gandharvika Mataji for her kind request to engage me in this service. I did listen to the 2 chapters before this one from both Her Grace Radhika Kasturi Mataji and Her Grace Sita Priti Mataji, and I only wish I could imbibe their deep sincerity and purity. The showering of appreciation and love for the speakers in this Bhakti Sangha Japa group most certainly pleases the Lord and the whole parampara. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschati Deshatarane. Offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is so very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken complete shelter at His lotus feet. Our respectful obeisances are unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Saraswati Goswami. You are so kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya all over the Western world. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksharan Malitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Shrapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurung Vaishnavangsha. Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raganatang Vitangtang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakang Vitangsha Hey Krishna Karana Sundar Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshri Vishabhanasate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrivya Straki Pasindavicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhanitananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The very first page of this last chapter lays out Srila Prabhupada's travel plans from Bombay. He had traveled around the world in his 10 years of preaching since going to America from India in 1965, and this would be his 8th world tour beginning January 25th, 1975. That would take him to 12 major cities. He would enter 7 different countries and travel 34,000 miles within 50 days. He was due back in India by March for the 2nd international gathering of his disciples at Sridham Mayapur, and over 1,000 ISKCON devotees from all over the world were planning to be in India for this year's festival. It was a very special year. Srila Prabhupada would at last hold the grand opening of the ISKCON Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan and install the deities of Gaurnitai, Krishna Balaram, and Radhe Shyamasundar. Srila Prabhupada had come in September 1974 to open the temple on Krishna's appearance day. but he had been disappointed by delays in the construction, and he became seriously ill in Vrindavan. His fever was dangerously high, and he had given permission to devotees in all the ISKCON temples to hold 24-hour kirtan to pray for his recovery. In September, when word came for all the temples to have 24-hour kirtan, I was living in Montreal in the original ISKCON Radha Krishna temple, which was converted from a bowling alley. In late 1967, devotees found this place to establish a center in Montreal, and it became the third city worldwide to house a temple outside of India. Every one of us felt overwhelmed and scared. The 24-hour kirtan went on as we fervently prayed, "My dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, please let Srila Prabhupada get well and stay with us." I remember Varuni Devidasi preaching to me how we had to be strong in Krishna consciousness no matter what. By Krishna's mercy, Srila Prabhupada recovered, and we were exceedingly thankful. We could not imagine losing our beloved spiritual master and be alone. We were so young in our Krishna consciousness. When Hridayananda Maharaj asked Srila Prabhupada to please visit South America, Srila Prabhupada told him he was in Bombay trying to get permission from the government to build our temple there. In Giriraj Swami's book, I'll Build You a Temple, it states that on January 19th, 1975, Mr. Sethi said that he would get permission in 2 to 4 days to build the project minus the temple. And on the 3rd day, he got it. Prabhupada was jubilant and called for another cornerstone laying ceremony, the 3rd one, to signify the beginning of the main construction. He preached that India's people are meant for paropakara, working for the benefit of others. The next day, January 24th, after staying in Juhu for almost 3 months and finally getting permission to build, Prabhupada was ready to leave. Srila Prabhupada had said he wanted to stay in one place and write his books, but even while traveling, he would continue his translation and commentary of the Srimad Bhagavatam wherever he stopped. Sometimes devotees asked about my generation of devotees' interactions with Srila Prabhupada. But in 1974, when I joined, there was a great urgency to facilitate his writing, and the intimate relationships he had in the 1960s with the beginning devotees was replaced with his strong determination and focus to have as much time as possible to write. Srila Prabhupada said many times that his books would be the law books for the next 10,000 years. Just a second. Hold on. For the next 10,000 years. So Prabhupada was going to instruct the rest of this world by his transcendental purports. His transcendental books would train everyone for becoming fully Krishna conscious. And you can find in the Bhaktivedanta archives the following. Prabhupada said, "I read my books every day because even I learn something new when I read my books. These are not my books. I do not write these books." It seemed as if something mystical came over him at this point. He said, "Every morning when I sit to write my books, Krishna comes personally and dictates to me what to write. I simply take dictation from Krishna to write these books. Therefore, when I read them, even I learn something." When we hear Arjuna's inquiry in Bhagavad Gita 14, verse 21, "Oh my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these 3 modes? What is his behavior and how does he transcend the modes of nature?" It is perfectly clear when reading any literature describing Srila Prabhupada's activity in this world that he was fully immersed in Krishna consciousness and following Krishna's dictation at every moment. He knew what to say and how, what to do, where to go, and how to multitask. he was empowered to address all the events, all the issues and disturbances presenting on every continent. At the advanced age of 79 years, he was tolerating disruptive travel hours, the jet lag, the inconvenience of waiting in airports and of custom delays, just to keep his devotees spiritually alive. He felt compelled to oversee personally the growth of his Krishna consciousness mission on every continent. He felt his time was limited, and he wanted to strengthen his disciples in their execution of Krishna consciousness so that they could continue in his absence. How could he take such good care of so many disciples from all cultures and at all different stages of Krishna consciousness, and get them to start centers everywhere and preach? No one could ever preach incessantly and transform so many hearts without having such unalloyed pure devotion for Krishna. So his first stop was Hong Kong for 2 days. He had a dictating machine and reference books. He had his entourage, his secretary Paramahansa Swami, his personal servant Shrutakirti, and a Sanskrit student Nitai. He was prepared to preach and write anywhere and everywhere. When he arrived in Hong Kong, Trivikram Maharaj, Swami, Panchadravida Swami, and Sudam Vipra Swami all showed up for Prabhupada's arrival. He spoke at the Hilton's Convention Hall to about 200 Indians, and a few Chinese attended. He preached that this is a scientific movement. Anyone intelligent, any thoughtful person, he must take to Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, he's doomed. When the devotees took him to an overcrowded park in the heart of the city, Srila Prabhupada declared it hellish. While there, he cautioned Trivikram Swami not to criticize the Tai Chi practitioners. At one point, Prabhupada asked what were some of the difficulties they had faced in Krishna consciousness, and each told of some incident of austerities. Srila Prabhupada asked Panchadravida to distribute books in Hong Kong and somehow publish books in the Chinese language. When reading about Prabhupada's desire that Chinese books be published, I remembered going to Mayapur in 2004 and 2005 and seeing the incredible Chinese devotees trained by His Grace, His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Vinasa Narasimha Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada had once said that the Chinese might be the last to join, but they would be the best devotees. That year, the Chinese devotees had brought an offering of exquisite silk outfits in a rainbow of colors in the traditional Chinese design for Radha Madhava and Astasakis to wear in Mayapur, and it was breathtakingly beautiful. Regarding Panchadravida Swami, I actually met his family member on Sankirtan in California, and she told me all about him and took a book. She also gave me her card. My dear most friend Lila Shakti Devi Dasi, who is from Mexico and is one of the first women initiated by His Holiness Trivikram Maharaj, arranged for him to stay in our downstairs apartment in our home in California on several occasions, and we got lots of association and nectar from him. The Lilamrta mentioned that Sudam Vipra Swami had disassociated himself from ISKCON. So I did some research. I found in the Transcendental Diary, Volume 4 by Harisari Prabhu, that 2 devotees wanted to preach in the Philippines, but were greatly hampered by Sudam's restrictions and scary threats to devotees. At that time, Prabhupada said that Sudama was a gunda, a thug. Quote, "They have gone outside our ISKCON line and cannot be relied on to cooperate with us. You should work independently from him." Radhika Kasturi Mataji had relayed the story about Sudam taking a donated restaurant, which should have been the property of ISKCON, instead to be his own. But still, Prabhupada was prepared to treat him with trust and love. He said, otherwise, what is the difference between us and the karmi? Fast forward in time, here we see Srila Prabhupada did advise clearly to disassociate with him. However, I confirmed later that Sudam Prabhu did end up receiving great mercy, as his mother called a temple in California when his son was dying and told His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He sent a devotee to her place and brought him back to the temple, and the devotees took care of him till he left his body, with kirtan all around him. Tamal Krishna Maharaj did not forget the 10 good years of devotional service and preaching Sudam Vipra had rendered. The next stop was Tokyo from January 27th to the 28th, 1975. They had trouble with Japanese immigration officials and were granted no more than a 2-day transit visa. But Prabhupada was then royally greeted by Dai Nippon printers of Tokyo. They sent a white-gloved uniformed chauffeur to pick up Srila Prabhupada and take him to the ISKCON Center. Srila Prabhupada was BBT's sole author and publishing director, and they were still competitively bidding for ISKCON's work. Prabhupada would spice his talks with local references. He even talked about Dai Nippon Company, who came to see him, had about 200,000 people to carry on their business, but there were so many problems. He said, so this material world is full of problems. He cited Japan's severe cold climate, and trying to stay warm is only mitigating the suffering of the cold. It is not real pleasure. When he asked, what do you do that many times you have experienced earthquakes here? But the Japanese boys and girls all remained silent. But they all broke into laughter when Prabhupada said, everyone, they scream. They scream. Naturally, they will remember God. Prabhupada gave 2 lectures in Japan. While there, he was informed that the police in Germany had raided the ISKCON temple in Frankfurt, Germany, and confiscated money from the bank accounts. Hung Sadhuta sent him a distressed letter, and Prabhupada said to meet him in Hawaii. The next stop was Hawaii from January 29th to February 9th. They faced controversy when arriving in Hawaii from different directions. Back when Srila Prabhupada was only in New York and there were threats there, he had been like a worried father, but now his transcendental worries had expanded out into 100 centers in countries all over the world. Here in Hawaii, one devotee who broke away from ISKCON had gathered his own followers. His preaching was deviant from ISKCON, and devotees living in the temple criticized his divergent group. Prabhupada tolerated them because they would eventually get purified by chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada did say that chanting without following the regulative principles was not a useless thing, but it was a very slow process, like trying to kindle a fire while pouring water on it. Prabhupada still clarified his position and the position of his true followers. A few confrontations were presented about being Krishna conscious outside the temple and not having to live in the temple, how to serve the spiritual master but while working at an outside job, and others who insisted they could faithfully obey Srila Prabhupada but could not follow his GBC representative or his ISKCON. After hearing from them in a meeting, Prabhupada asked them to leave the room. He then said, what they're really saying when they don't like ISKCON and the GBC is they don't like to follow my order. That means Guru Aparad. To say they have faith in me is just hypocrisy. Prabhupada wanted to leave Hawaii shortly thereafter. At the beginning of ISKCON, most everyone lived in the temples and not outside. I cannot understate that to have been able to live in the temples, Srila Prabhupada established, and to serve full time while he, the founder Acharya, was actually present on the planet, acting as the commander-in-chief and redirecting when anything went astray, was the greatest boon for any soul to have received. So many extraordinary, talented persons appeared and served beautifully with God-given gifts. Srila Prabhupada had said that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was sending all of us to him. This was a transcendental opportunity for everyone to become enveloped in Krishna consciousness from morning to night and taste the nectar of selfless service to the Lord and his pure devotee. Srila Prabhupada knew this was essential at the beginning of his Krishna consciousness movement to train his followers to lay down the foundation as he instructed. As Srila Prabhupada famously said, books are the basis, utility is the principle, preaching is the essence, but most importantly, purity is the force. He needed cooperation and trust, an ongoing service attitude in his followers, so that his books could be distributed worldwide, and Lakshmi needed to be collected on a wide scale so that temples could be established everywhere. That way, people all over the world could visit a center and get sadhu sangha and hear about Krishna consciousness. That way, the movement could expand nicely. While reading these sections in the Lilamrta, describing all the impediments, it is very important to recognize that they were coming from both external and internal battles. There were the onslaught of derogatory and false propaganda in the media, corrupt governments trying to halt Krishna conscious activities, atheists, bewildered parents of devotees, and non-accepting religions. These tests were compounded greatly by deviations that cropped up by those who were in most cases trying to be devotees but became lost. Srila Prabhupada made it clear on many occasions that we have all declared war on Maya. He also said, when there is a fight, my Guru Maharaj used to say, some of our soldiers will die. It doesn't matter. You don't expect not a single soldier of your party will not die. No, some of them will die. We experience that the deviations practiced by initiated devotees, often leaders, seem to be causing more difficulties to Srila Prabhupada's movement than all the outside disturbances together. I can't get it to go on. It won't turn off. Please remember that all the austerities Srila Prabhupada's disciples performed are undoubtedly to their eternal benefit. It is important to also acknowledge that many devotees trying to faithfully follow faced physical and emotional harm. Traveling for extended periods of time became the normal schedule for Sankirtan devotees, and they no longer could even attend the morning program on a regular basis or even honor Mahaprasadam. The skeleton crew of devotees back at the temples were also overloaded by service, which would normally be done by many. So as ISKCON spread quickly, the austerities increased dramatically, and everyone was being tested by Maya daily. One lecture Srila Prabhupada gave at this time in Hawaii in 1975, twice during the same class, Prabhupada looked around the room and stated, "Those who come after you will be more advanced. Those who come after you will be more advanced." Last night, this was confirmed by Mahavishnu Priya and her husband who live there. I want to point out to all of you in this Transcendental Bhakti Sangha Japa group that Srila Prabhupada was referring to you. The next stop was Los Angeles from February 9 through 10th. Hridayananda Goswami commented that Srila Prabhupada always smelled like sandalwood. And there would also be the aroma of flowers because he was always wearing fresh flower garlands. Prabhupada was always very clean with fresh tilaks. So immediately when he would sit in the car would be spiritualized and sanctified, and all illusion would be gone. ISKCON Los Angeles, New Dwarka, the Western World headquarters, was burgeoning with many Krishna conscious projects. Book distribution was booming. The devotee population was growing. Money was available and was utilized in various technological and cultural preaching departments. Srila Prabhupada visited for the first time the spacious BBT warehouse, where his books were stored and shipped out to the ISKCON centers all around the world. Srila Prabhupada toured the two warehouses with Rameshwar Prabhu, the manager of the BBT, as his guide. Srila Prabhupada said the dramatization some of the devotees had performed for him the night before, when done very nicely, will be very much appreciated even by the public. The devotees could act in pantomime, and the soundtracks could narrate plays in many different languages. Theatrical talents, all talents, were acquired from austerity and should be used to glorify Krishna. Art, music, everything we can utilize. In any way one is addicted. Let him eat only, let him sing only, let him paint only, let him dance only. We have got everything. That is Krishna consciousness. It is an all perfect movement. That is Krishna, all attractive. Everyone can become attracted and give up everything. He will be attracted by Krishna in such a way that he will give up all nonsense. That is Krishna consciousness. All other attraction finished. Anya Bilasita Sunyam, simply Krishna. Prabhupada examined all the stacks of transcendental literature in the warehouse. At one point, turning to Hridayananda Maharaj, he said, "You have taken Spanish." And turning to Hangsadutta, he said, "And you in German. Let them overflood." In the presence of his books, Prabhupada was exhilarated, and the thought of how more and more books could be written, printed, and distributed in many different languages made him ecstatic. During this visit, Srila Prabhupada saw the first completed diorama by the artist engaged in doll making. In 1973, he had requested several of his disciples to visit India and learn the ancient art of making lifelike figures from earth and straw. The horses and chariots were startlingly lifelike. Prabhupada's response was spontaneous delight. "The horses are more beautiful than Krishna." "That is because they are the servants of Krishna," he said, smiling. Srila Prabhupada spent 2 days in Los Angeles. It was the ideal center for his headquarters, with the largest number of his disciples in one city, many of whom were also leaders in book distribution. No other center at that time had as many departments and expansive projects. His own living quarters were also comfortable, a pleasantly decorated 3-room apartment and a private garden with many varieties of aromatic flowers. He enjoyed sitting in that garden in the early evening with just a few disciples while one of them read aloud from the Krishna book. The climate of Southern California was also to his liking, and as for the temple worship, the highest of all the centers in his ISKCON. He considered the standard perhaps the place of residence. He said, "Krishna had given me hundreds of nice places of residence." Srila Prabhupada laughed, "But his order is you cannot stay." Just a note, we love visiting LA Temple, and I wish someday I could serve Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish. And in 2016, that happened by Krishna's kindness. The next stop was Mexico from February 11 to 18. Srila Prabhupada returned to Mexico after 3 years, and more centers had opened in the Caribbean and South America. There were centers in Trinidad, the Dominican Republic, and in Puerto Rico. Also, people in Caracas and Buenos Aires began chanting and reading his books. Once Hridayananda Goswami became the GBC for all of Latin America, from that point, Krishna consciousness movement in Latin America began to rapidly expand. He traveled constantly from one country to another and organized the distribution of his books in Spanish and Portuguese. This time he accompanied Prabhupada to Hawaii and Los Angeles to make sure he did in fact make it to Mexico. Several times Mexico was to be visited by Prabhupada. In one instance, it was within 2 hours of his expected arrival time, and a call came saying he would have to come later. On that occasion, the devotees had become overwhelmed and had thrown flowers and handfuls of cake at one another while crying and laughing. Hridayananda Maharaj arranged that Prabhupada and his party would bypass immigration, and also police on a motorcycle escorted his car all the way to the temple. Srila Prabhupada smiled with pleasure to see all this take place. They ecstatically greeted him with roaring kirtan and flower petals. They washed his feet and did Guru Puja. After Guru Puja, Prabhupada spoke in English to the assembled devotees, and it was translated every few sentences. He said how he liked this place, but due to my old age also, I could not come earlier. But this time, by arrangement of our Hridayananda Maharaj, I have been forced to come here. The devotees burst into appreciative laughter. Once again, the transcendental message was coming from Prabhupada's lotus-like mouth. The spiritual master of the whole world was with them in ISKCON, Mexico, and the devotees listened and watched him with rapt attention. There was no scarcity of flowers in Mexico City, and every morning devotees, during Guru Puja, over 100 devotees and guests would come one by one before Srila Prabhupada to offer palmful of flower petals, which created a small hill of flower petals, which he would gather up handfuls and throw out to the ecstatic devotees. He replied to some questions that the human being is meant for marriage. And he said, "Oh yes, You have to follow the rules and regulation, that's all. And you can achieve Krishna consciousness outside the temple. He also said if a man comes and follows the regulative principles, even for some time, and again he falls down, so long as he has followed, the asset is permanent. Anything spiritual asset is never lost. Many guests were brought to the temple to meet Srila Prabhupada. He was explaining that the main point in the Vedic system was to teach that we are servant of God. A visitor who was a man working in the government in the educational program came, and he was receptive. Srila Prabhupada said to him, so I will be very glad if you can take some of these books and read, and then you'll see in a more broad way all the topics. The man said, oh yes, I would like to. When the man asked, is there anything I have to pay for these books? Prabhupada said, speaking gravely, if you want to give something for the books, we will accept. I lived in ISKCON Puerto Rico temple in Trio Alto for many years and dressed Shri Radha Shamasundar and many times Gaur Nitai on the same day. I cooked some days and then I would do Sankirtan at the airport. I had a peacock named Nirjal as my friend and a baby colt that thought I was the mother. When I met Tiffany in person 2 years ago at the Sadhu Sangha Festival in Spanish Fork, Utah, Shama from Puerto Rico recognized me and came up to talk. We had not seen each other for over 43 years. I worked for a time in Old San Juan at a Govinda's vegetarian restaurant owned by a father and daughter team who always came to the temple. I slept in the boga room with 3-inch cockroaches. A friend of Krishna who was a judge in Puerto Rico helped me start the process to get permanent residency in the States. So I met with many wonderful souls there. And then in California, we always distributed Spanish Bhagavad Gitas when we could get them. Meditación y Superconciencia is still my favorite Spanish small book to distribute. It has always been such a pleasure to distribute to Latin Americans because they are genuine and pious and very often deep thinkers. Catholicism is a very personal religious approach to God. The next stop was Caracas from February 18th to 24th. This was the first time Srila Prabhupada made it to Caracas. The leading book distributor in the temple washed Prabhupada's feet as Prabhupada sat on a raised Vyasasan overlooking 100 persons. The devotees, many of them from other countries in South America, and the guests, friends, seekers, and the curious filled every inch of floor space. As Srila Prabhupada sat, he beheld the 2 golden forms of Gaur Nitai deities. He made obeisances to them when he first entered the room, and now he spoke of their mercy. You are very fortunate, he said. These 2 Prabhus, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, are present with us tonight. There is a song you can follow, and he began to sing. Parama Karuna Pahudvijana Nitai Gorachanda Sabhavatar Sarashiromani Kevala Anandakanda. Now that Prabhupada was in Caracas, seeing so many devotees and seeing Gaur Nitai presiding from their simple altar, he was most impressed and moved by the mercy of Gaur Nitai. These 2 lords, he sang, were the essence of all incarnations and the most merciful. Prabhupada himself was traveling, and yet the 2 Prabhus were already here waiting with arms upraised, shining effulgently. They had come to this distant place, Venezuela, and Prabhupada was deeply touched on how they had extended their mercy to the whole world. Tears glided down his cheeks and his voice broke. The devotees became wonderstruck, appreciating Prabhupada's vision of the 2 deities on the altar. Prabhupada wasn't thinking that he was in South America with some Spanish-speaking people, but he was seeing his beloved lords and feeling how they were delivering love of God to all the fallen souls. Seeing Prabhupada's tears and hearing his choked voice, the people themselves became thrilled to behold genuine transcendental ecstasy. Although the deity, the temple, and the devotees had only become manifest through Prabhupada's preaching, the fact that they were all here flourishing before he had ever come moved him to a visible ecstasy of love as the servant of the Lord. He was awed by the potency of Gaur Nitai. The Caracas temple was situated on a hill overlooking the city. From his garden, Prabhupada, sitting in his rocking chair, could see the whole city of Caracas, the city of eternal spring, spread out before him, shimmering in the valley below. He sat basking in the sunshine, chanting. Jagajivan Prabhu was there, and he was requesting to take sannyas. Srila Prabhupada was somewhat trying to discourage him. He turned to Hridayananda Maharaj and laughed slightly. All he wants is fame, he said. He's interested only in fame. Another night, the leaders of the Metaphysical Society of Caracas came. From my point of view, their leader said, you are repeating the Hare Krishna mantra over and over again, somewhat like hypnotism. Prabhupada replied, that is your opinion, but you are not an authority. Srila Prabhupada quoted from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says that the chanting of the Lord's name is the activity of the Mahatmas, the great souls. In the Western Hemisphere, the man said, the supreme authority is Saint Germain, and he says we should chant, I am. That is a quote from the Bible. Apparently, when they asked God who he is, God said, I am that I am. Srila Prabhupada preached to them. When God says, I am, and I say, I am, there is a difference. I am particle, I am, and he is whole, I am. The members couldn't accept the worshipful chanting of the names of Krishna. When Prabhupada was about to leave Caracas, he said, so under the guidance of your leaders in this temple, especially Hridayananda Maharaj, you follow. One life, just take a little trouble. It is not trouble. It is a very happy life, but because we are accustomed to these material habits, we think it is trouble. No, it is not trouble. It is very pleasing. Sutsukam kartamavyayam. To execute devotional service is very pleasing. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. One note, in Mayapur, my husband and I met Jagajivan Prabhu years later with his wife at that time. He so much liked my husband and he was so very kind to us. He left his body in November of 2016 from a lung issue. But when I understood, Prabhupada knows what's in the heart. And then the second thing I wanted to say, one devotee I know very well, and who became a real Christian by my estimation, said to me about 15 years ago that there were 33,832 different Christian denominations and counting. She said this generally happens in all religions. People take bits and pieces and concoct their own religion. When preaching to Christians for years now, all I have to do is repeat that statement, and they all know it's true. The different sectarian divisions do not agree with each other and do not appreciate each other either. After bringing this to their attention, often it enables them to open up and to hear from Bhagavad Gita. The next stop was Miami from February 25th to the 27th. As Srila Prabhupada was entering the temple room on his arrival in Miami, he noticed an adjoining room housing tulsi plants and he entered. Srila Prabhupada smiled to see the room crowded with very healthy tulsis in large pots. He then entered the temple room. Once again, Srila Prabhupada beheld Gaur Nitai as the worshipable deity. Srila Prabhupada sat on the Vyasasana and addressed the 20 or so devotees who had gathered in Miami for his arrival. It is a great fortune for you, he began. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared for delivering all kinds of fallen souls in this age. The same Krishna and Balaram. Krishna has appeared as the son of Mother Sachi, and Balaram has appeared as Nityananda. Their business is to deliver all fallen souls, especially in this age, Kali Yuga. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission was that he should be present by his name, by his form, by his pastimes in every town and village of the world. And you are fulfilling his mission. So undoubtedly you will be blessed and you will get Krishna's mercy through the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You simply chant Hare Krishna mantra and whatever you can, offer Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is very kind. He does not take offense. Wherever he was, Srila Prabhupada was always steady with Krishna. As he had once commented, no place is my home. My home is at the lotus feet of Krishna. On the second night, Prabhupada lectured again. Each talk was lengthy, and he answered all questions. As the last question on the last evening in Miami, one of the devotees asked, Srila Prabhupada, if someone takes prasadam even once, is it true that they are guaranteed at least a human body in their next life? Yes, Prabhupada replied. You go on simply eating, that's all. All of my devotees, they have come to me simply by eating prasadam. Anecdote. I visited Miami on His Holiness Trivikram Maharaj's 70th birthday, along with Leela Shakti Devi Dasi and her husband, my godbrother Bahushar Prabhu. I was also very fortunate to dress their Sri Sri Gaurnitai on that occasion. The next stop was Atlanta, from February 28th to March 2nd. The deities of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu in Atlanta are over 4 feet tall and effulgent. Their lotus feet are usually fully visible, transcendently poised atop the whorls of lotus flowers. Their arms are upraised about their heads, and they urge everyone to dance and taste the nectar of the holy names of Krishna. Their faces show mild, compassionate smiles, and the mode of worship of God they are delivering, as described by Srila Prabhupada, is very, very lenient and easy to perform for the unfortunate people of the present age. On his arrival within the Atlanta temple, Srila Prabhupada was very moved to see Gaurnitai. Now in 3 consecutive stops, he had entered ISKCON temple for the first time and taken darshan of Gaurnitai. He had entered each ISKCON temple for the first time and taken darshan of Gaurnitai. This time, as in Caracas, it overwhelmed him. About 300 super enthusiastic devotees had gathered to meet him. I will play this address.
Is an arrival address given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, recorded on February 28, 1975, in Atlanta, Georgia.
So, I'm very glad to see you, and I'm coming first of all Mexico City. Yes. So Mexico City, then Caracas, then Miami. I see your temple is the best. Yeah, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very kind. Parama Koruna Pahujana. 2 lords, Nitai Gaura Chandra, Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're very kind, really. They have appeared just to reclaim the fallen souls of this age. So, they are more kind than Krishna. Krishna is also very kind. He comes to deliver, but Krishna demands the first of all surrender. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not demand surrender. He's so kind. So, take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and be there. Thank you.
Whenever devotees hear this address, they stop what they're doing and become stunned like a deer in front of lights, and they weep. My husband and I celebrated Panihasti festival in Atlanta whenever His Holiness Jai Patak Maharaj was present many years in a row. And being there with Sri Sri Gaurnitai and His Holiness Jai Patak Maharaj and those kirtans was simply ecstatic. After Atlanta, Srila Prabhupada traveled to Dallas, New York, London, and Tehran, staying only a few days in each place before flying to Bombay and then on to Calcutta and Mayapur in time for the annual festival of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day. After Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day came the grand opening of the Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan. And then Srila Prabhupada set out traveling again on another around-the-world Sankirtan orbit. Srila Prabhupada himself said that he was an old man, hampered by age, and requiring 3 assistants to help him move about. But actually, he was moving transcendentally. Otherwise, how was it possible? His around-the-world journey was not a matter of merely moving over the earth by jet or car. Such a mundane journey many ordinary men can make, but Srila Prabhupada's journey was one in which the traveler, being a pure devotee, gave pure love of Krishna to people everywhere. So I just wanted to say a few anecdotes about the last few places. Dallas, he was there from March 3rd to 4th. I lived in Dallas, and I used to just Shri Radha Kalachandri, and that was such mercy. I actually visited during that same sadhu sangha and met Chakri and his wife, and asked him to ask for them to forgive me for any offenses. And the next day he gave me Maha Sandesh from their lotus mouths. In New York, March 5th to 7th, I love New York Ratha Yatra and the Bhakti Center and the Matchless Gift. And we really love the donut plant. Mark Israel is the owner, and he has a family in North Carolina and visited the temple here in Prabhupada Village recently. Years ago, we took a taxi directly from the airport to the donut plant, and my husband, who is a massage therapist, gave Mark a massage and gave us really wonderful donuts. And in London, I never made it past the airport, but I have wonderful friends like Guru Charana Padma, who's the mother of Janavi and Tulsi, who are well-known Kirtaniyas. When I actually went to India, I was 25 years old for the first time. When I reached Mayapur and did my dandavats on the earth, I felt like I had come home. And as far as Tehran, Atreya Rishi had done great preaching in Tehran. And when I lived in Berkeley, I was about 22 years old, and I had been in Atreya Rishi's home with his wife, Vidhi Bhakti, for an arti ceremony. So all of these devotees, we all will know each other, and eventually we'll re-meet again. And I just wanted to thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Please accept my humble obeisances at the dust of all of your lotus feet. Panchakalpa Tribhyascha Kripa Sindhudeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances, Lalita Mataji. Thank you for a very, very beautiful Nectarian class. We're very honored to have you among us today. As Prabhupada said, he did not write the books, but it was Krishna who dictated him. And Prabhupada ji himself used to read his books. And now that we see at age 50, people retire. At age 79, Prabhupada was traveling back and forth, opening temples, training his disciples. All this hardship, Srila Prabhupada ji did all for us. Thank you so, so much for your wonderful association today and for a very, very beautiful Nectarian class. Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, go ahead, Preeti Mataji.
I just wanted to thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lalita Mataji.
Hare Krishna, dear. Hare Krishna.
What an honor to have you on the call. Really, really grateful for your association. It was so beautiful to hear Lilamrta from your lotus mouth with all the anecdotes from your personal life. It was very, very heart-moving. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences in this moment for so many years. What can I say? We're so blessed to have you and hear from you. Thank you, Mataji. I don't even know how to glorify this class, but I feel very moved and very grateful for your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Dear devotees, if you have any questions or realizations, please go ahead at this time.
Lalitangi Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, you have to come closer to your mic, Mataji. It is, we are not able to hear Lalita, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, am I audible? Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, dear Lalita Mataji. So beautiful. And we can't get what you said today in any books. Your own experiences and how you stayed in different places and the anecdotes of meeting different God brothers and God sisters of yours. And that's so precious. Thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into what it was like when you all performed devotional service. And I like the point that when Srila Prabhupada was personally present in the planet and everyone together serving in the temple and ISKCON expanded. It was more austere to be, everyone was loaded with services, being in the temple, and we miss that. Our generation misses that so much, and we can see that how you're trained and how pure your service and and pray that we'll be able to follow in your footsteps and pass on your one passages. And please, my humble request is please come often and share these valuable gems that are so important for us to follow your footsteps. Thank you so much, dear Mother Lalita. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, my dear poet, my sweet devotee. I want to say that I just want to say that I had let Lalitangi Mataji know how powerful this process is in a letter, an email I had written her long time back. When Prabhupada left, it became quite austere. In Berkeley, where I was at the point, I had to go back to school. They sold the houses that belonged to the temple, and we had to go back into this world and start living. And it was very it broke our hearts, really. But it was necessary. And Prabhupada always said, God helps those who help themselves. And at one point later, I married my husband. And we tried to have a child, an in vitro process. And I was on the way to work. It was a Sunday because I did bookkeeping at people's home offices. And it was a huge storm. And when I was driving down, I hadn't been able to be involved in the temple for years. And when I was driving, someone wanted me to move faster. And when I moved out of the way, my car hydroplaned and I started to roll down the highway. And the whole time I kept chanting, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya. And the car came to rest on the top, upside down. And people pulled off the highway and pulled me out of the car. And when they pulled me out of the window, I only had some cuts on my wrist. And I kind of brushed myself off and I said, well, Krishna's my God, it's life. So I am a full believer that it's by Prabhupada's incredible kindness that he came to this planet and this world. And he gave us this Krishna consciousness because this holy name is so unbelievably powerful. So I just wanted to share that. Hare Krishna.
Vrinda Gopika Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Aji Lalitangi Mataji, Aji Dina Banapur Prabhuji, Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam Mataji, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gopinath ki jai. Mataji, personally I am not meet you, but I stayed 2 days in your home when we came Srila Prabhupada Amrita before 7 months. Srila Gurudev came in Baltimore Dham. Mataji, all the all the Srila Prabhupada village Matajis are so older Mataji, but so sincerely morning feet 4:30. Some are doing Shri Nityananda and Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji, Shri Gaur Nitai dressing. Some are preparing prasad. Some are cleaning the temple. Some are doing kirtan, and one Mataji is doing Shri Bhagavatam. Only we are two people, but still so sincerely prepared Shri Bhagavatam and share with all of you. Mataji, in my retired time, I will stay in Srila Prabhupada Murta village. Mataji, I have seen in your home that there is a Sridham Vrindavan Dham in a bedroom. All everywhere Srila Prabhupada, big darshan and Shri Gaur Nitai darshan. And personally we not meet, but that very young Mataji will explain about you and Dinabandhu Prabhuji. Mataji, pray for all of us and give your association to Bhakti Sangha Mataji. So many things I am not reading in Srila Prabhupada Amrita. Today I hear from you. You explained when the Srila Prabhupada came in Atlanta, Panihati Dham. That time 300 devotees there, and that Srila Prabhupada sing Parama Karuna, Bahuduhi Jana, Nitai Gaura Chandra. Before 10 days, I by Srila Prabhupada Mercy teach this bhajan to Baltimore Dham, all Vaishnava Mataji. And that time I don't know that this song is sung in by Srila Prabhupada. And then you explain about the Panihati Dham festival, Mataji, from last 12 years. So fortunate that by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, Sri Radha Gopinath, our Acharyagan, that we get the danda of Jaipataka Maharaj every year, Mataji. And all Mataji are so sincerely came from Miami, Texas, and they are doing so sincerely Panihati festival, better than us, Mataji. And then I never forget that feel that I am in Shridham Mayapur Dham, Mataji. And you explained that at the age of 22, you enter in Shridham Mayapur Dham and meet Shri Radha Kalachandji, and in Dallas and New York and in Bhakti Center, and then in London you meet Gaur Chandra Mataji, Padma Mataji, the two daughter of Janvi and Tulsi Mataji. We never seen Gaur Chandra, Ajji Gaur Chandra Mataji, but we by Srila Prabhupada mercy we meet Ajji Janvi Mataji and Ajji Tulsi Mataji. And Srila Prabhupada is traveling from Panihati Dham to Dallas, London, Mumbai, Kolkata, Mayapur, and then Shridham Mayapur Dham, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appearance day, and then again Srila Prabhupada enter in Shridham Vrindavan Dham, opening the temple of Shri Radha Shyam Sundar. And Srila Prabhupada at the age of 70, Mataji, at the age of, I'm talking about myself, Mataji, at the age of 55, my health is not supporting. Every day morning, new problems start and we have to face out that problem. But when we read Srila Prabhupada Amrita, it's give a lots of energy. And I thank you, Srila Prabhupada, that after visiting Srila Prabhupada village, how sincerely all Matajis and Prabhuji, they are maybe 70, 72, 73 years. But what is that mood to serve Srila Prabhupada? They teach us a lesson, Mataji. And I learned a lesson from you and Prabhuji, that how sincerely your determination to serve Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev. That Prabhuji is from, I think, I don't know, he's cooking in a kitchen. He is talking so many things about you, Mataji. So me and one Mataji are there, both are Gujarati. So actually, Lalita Mataji, please give your association and blessing every Friday, Mataji. Koti Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gopinath ki jai. Jai Jai Nityananda, Jai Jai Gauranga.
Thank you, Mata. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Anita Gandharika Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Lalita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for coming on the call. Your voice has a magic, Mataji. When you started speaking about Srila Prabhupada, Lilamrta, I mean, I could not move from this place. It's so sweet. I could see what you're telling, what each and every the past time we could see in front of our eyes. Thank you so much. And at the end, just now, what you shared about your experience, about your accident, it is so nice, Mataji, like how much belief and No, you have so much of love for Gauranga. That's why you are able to call his name when you are in danger. And we could see that how Lord is always there with his devotees. Whenever they are in the danger, he will come and protect. Thank you so much, Mataji, for that sharing that pastime. It gives us so much hope and so much love for the Lord, how Lord is always there with us. Thank you, Mataji. And very nice pastimes of your personal pastimes that you have shared in each places, different places that you visited and you served. Thank you, Mataji, for all wonderful association for today. It's really very, very nice. And especially you played proper lecture. That was so heart-touching, Mataji. Thank you so much. No words, Mataji, to express my gratitude and my feeling for today's class. Thank you. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you for all your service.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Once again, I would love to thank Her Grace Lalita Devi Mataji for a very beautiful class and your wonderful association. Please, Mataji, give your association more often. There are a lot of in the chats, there are a lot of comments. Everyone is thanking you, and we look forward to your wonderful association in the near future. Dear devotee, if there are no more questions or realizations, I would like to pay my obeisances to Her Grace Lalita Devi Mataji and all the assembled devotees. Pancha kalpatarubhyacha kripa sindhuevcha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavyo namo namah. Ananta Vaishnavendi ki jai. Charidas Thakur ji ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta ki jai. Her Grace Lalita Devi Mataji ki jai.
Thank you, Mataji. Koti Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna, Lalita Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Gauranga.
Nityananda.
Nityananda. Gauranga.
Was that Dinabandhu Prabhu? Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for your association. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Dinabandhu
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
From you also one day, Prabhuji. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Thank you everyone for joining today's class. We'll close the call for today. Hari